I vanish more players than Rome's Lost Legion. If you see me Q&A West, you gotta swap regions.
Nice rhyme.
Don't you love it when people say, here's someone that needs no introduction, and then they proceed to give them a full introduction? Yeah, that's what we're going to do here today. Our guest today on Player Profiles Episode 2 has more monikers than someone that sits on the Iron Throne.
First of his name, rightful king of the Andals and the First Men, lord of the Seven Kingdoms and protector of the realm.
He is the Doctor of Divinity, the Inquisitional Templar, the leader of the Ghoul Fan Club, the three-time back-to-back Dark and Darker Esports Cash Cup champion, and the man who has coined the phrase,
Hey, good evening, Dark and Darker Dungeon Delvers. Dark and Darker Dungeon Delvers. Dark and Darker Dungeon Delvers.
If I say it one more time, if I say it one more time, if I say it one more time.
How does this work? Do I just push, do I leave?
So tonight we are going to chat about a multitude of things, hopefully a lot of Dark and Darker. But before we get into your take on the State of the Union and what's coming, what you're looking forward to, I wanted to get into a little bit of your background because I know, at least for the people that are in the chat here, maybe not a lot of them know your history, the full profile. And that's why we do these things, right? So that the community gets to know more about the players. You had a really interesting origin story. You were in the military, you were overseas, and something pretty significant happened to you. Walk us through that event.
All right, so I got to start by saying it was a lot of kind of pointing my gun off in the distance and, sighing and kicking rocks for 12 or 14 hours a day. But when I came home, I got into some big time full loot PvP, and a drunk driver who was high and didn't have a license, and he had stolen the truck, decided that it was time for me to die. And so he just slammed into me. I didn't even see it coming. And I have no idea, even to this day, what happened. It's been described to me. I've read the reports. I went to court. I did all that cool stuff. But I woke up in the hospital and I had absolutely no idea what happened. But I hear it was really bad. So I collapsed both my lungs. I broke every rib. I fractured my arm in 3 places. I broke my feet and my fingers and my neck. And my heart's starting to beat a little bit faster as I talk about this. But
Jeez. How
it,
long
it
were you
was
in?
it was real rough. So I was in surgery for like 3 months, and I was in the hospital for like 3 to 6 months, and then I had to go to physical and occupational therapy like all day, every day for a year. And during that time, I mean, I couldn't even walk. So I was playing Black Desert Online basically nonstop in order to get the use of my hand back. Because originally they said I wouldn't be able to use it because I flayed like all my nerves in my right hand, and I've got some really wicked scars. It's called the compound fracture. And what happens is your bones go like opposite directions. And so people on the scene, apparently it was like vomit inducing as they looked at like this skeletal figure because my bones were like all out all over the place. And I'm really lucky because I got hit across the street from the hospital. So they just like scooped me up and
Oh,
like
wow.
carried me in and then put me on the operating table. And the doctor whose specialty it was actually a army veteran who did combat work. And so I'm sure for him, he was like, oh, I got this. Like he probably just went into, like ready to go, like ready to drop mode, and then just put kind of Humpty Dumpty back together again. And so that
Jeez,
that is my
man.
origin story. And just to like finish the loop of the story, that guy got 30 to life. After he hit me, he hit 7 other people, including a motorcyclist.
What?
And so
Holy
he was like on a rampage. But he screwed up because he should have finished me because we came back. We got the witness reports. We got the to testify, and so 30 to life. It's not looking good for him. So, he
No
might have got
kidding.
me bad, but I think in the end, I win this one.
Yeah. So during the rehab and recovery phases, is that where you really started gaming big time, or were you already a gamer at that point?
No, it had me. I've been in the clutches of gaming since I was like 5. Like some of my earliest memories are at my mom's house, just playing the Nintendo Entertainment System and
Yes.
playing, like old school Mario where you had sort of a D-pad and 2 buttons, so it was real simple. Like, kids back then could play games without a problem, and, now they're playing Fortnite and they're building hotels in, like, 2 seconds flat, so
Right.
as games progress, so too does the sort of educational and skill level of gamers in general.
Oh, for
And
sure.
so I've been playing for 30 years, man. I can't get enough. And obviously, when I was in the military, especially overseas, I couldn't play. So, I'm sort of used to waiting. And that's why right now, while we're between Dark and Darker playtests, I'm just biding my time. I'm used to this.
Yeah. And I got the bug early. I think my dad brought home an Atari 2600 when I was 3.5 years old. And the first game I played was Pong, and it was incredible. And I kind of feel bad for the current generation because they'll never experience like the actual origin story of video games because that was really the first, that and some people would maybe argue like ColecoVision were some of the first video games that were accessible
Mhm.
to a wide consumer base. And dude, it changed my life. Like that's all I wanted to do was play Atari. Adventure was by far the best game. Warren Robinet was the developer for that. That was back in the days where you just had one developer per game, right? You had a guy that had an idea and he would code the whole game because it was
Hmm.
an Atari cartridge could only hold what, eight bits or less. I mean, it was
Oh, that's where
crazy.
8-bit gaming comes from.
Right, right.
I see.
Or not hold 8 bit storage wise, but yeah, dude, it was a different time for sure.
I,
Yeah. So, what was your favorite video game growing up? What was your very first favorite
oh,
video game?
it was hands down EverQuest. It was a
EQ.
massively
Wow,
multi
nice.
EQ and an MMORPG of massive proportion. And my my favorite memories, and this is really what launched my career as sort of a full loot PvPer, is that EverQuest, when I was like 8 or maybe even 6, they came out with a full loot PvP server that was only going to last a month called Pandemonium, an absolute classic name for a chaotic rule set. And if you killed someone, you got everything they owned, and their character was deleted. And so me and my brother were like the most, shystier little rats. And we had the most disgusting setup. And so he was a ranger, and so he could he could track players inside a zone anywhere. Like you couldn't hide from it. And then I played something called I think a Shadow Knight or a Death Knight. And I had like a 90-minute cooldown ability, and it would hit someone for like 80% of their health instantly. It was an insta cast, and it had a 90-minute cooldown. And so basically, we hid in the sewers underneath the city, and we just like grinded rats and like gelatinous oozes. And then we would rise up out of the sewer, and he would track someone, and then we would hit them with like this shadow touch once every 90 minutes, and we would just insta kill somebody. And then we would scrape up all their loot, and we would like crawl back into the sewers. And man, it was so great for like 2 weeks. And then someone came down in the sewers, and they were like level 33, and we were like 14, and they just decimated us. And I actually cried. Like when we died, I literally cried to my mom, and I was like asking her how I could get my stuff back. But like the rule set of Pandemonium was really cool. And it reminds me actually of Ironmace and Dark and Darker, because the developers of EverQuest decided that like the top 2 or 3 people on the server at the end would be able to name the raid bosses. And so there was this cool like community player interaction. And really over the course of the last 3 decades, I haven't seen that as much, um, really, compared to when I talk to Ironmace, right? When I talk to Terrence and SDF, they have so much passion. And now Jonah Vale has been placed inside the game world as an actual character. And so I feel like it's going back to its roots. It's really cool. It's very
Yeah,
retro.
yeah. So, moving on from EQ, did you pick up Fortnite next? How did the whole shoutcasting esports story come about for you?
I feel like after the accident, I was really lucky in a way because the Air Force released me from my contract. And so I went from working full time to really playing video games full time. And I didn't know back then how you could make money doing it, or even like why you would do that necessarily, if that makes sense. I was just playing games. Like I just had a passion for it, and it was helping me heal. And so I like joined a bunch of communities, and I was kind of, up late on Reddit, and I was watching and looking at a lot of different things. And so I got super lucky because I got to make money for the first time ever playing games in a really obscure way. But Reddit, they started doing like meme stocks, I don't know if you know, there's like a bunch of movies around it and such, but I've been on Reddit for like 10 years, mostly for gaming. And all of the gamers that I knew were talking about these like wild meme stocks, and everybody was so hyped about it. It was like a brand new game. And obviously there's a lot of real money involved, but
So you're
their
telling me you were
catchphrase,
responsible for the GameStop pump? Is that what you're telling
I
me?
I wish that I had been part of GameStop. I actually said like that can't make any money. I was on the other side. And I heard it everywhere. It was like in video games. Everybody was like, GME, GME, like monkey strong together. And I watched all the memes and I like showed my dad. And me and my dad decided we were like, we'll join them on the next one. And so we joined them for AMC and a bunch of other like weird stocks like BlackBerry and like Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know, just weird stuff. But yeah, I happened to make like something like 100,000, and then I took that money and I just went and I lived this wild life for like 3 years. I went and lived in Italy and France and Morocco
Holy
and
cow.
Senegal, and I just like ate at nice restaurants, and I like dated beautiful people, and I listened to music under the full moon in the desert. And I almost see, it's so unfortunate that you can't tell like the true honest stories when you're streaming. Like some of them border on illegality. And so we'll leave it with that one. And so basically I went to, as the Reddit people say, you either go for a Lamborghini or you go for ramen. It's Lambos or ramen. It can only be 100 or zero. And so I just zeroed my bank account and had a great time like out in the world.
Oh,
And so
jeez.
now I'm back, but I feel like my core is gaming, and
Hmm.
so it's really cool to be back, and especially right now, there's just a lot of cool stuff going on in the industry.
Well, yeah, for sure, man. Especially for the game that we're going to spend most of our time talking about here. In terms of content creation and what you've seen over the years, and it looked like I tried to go back through some of the history of the videos you've published, and it looks like there's been spells where you're all in on a game, like V Rising. I know you were very much into recently, and then other times there's a little lull, and it seems like that's just not exclusive to you. I think that's par for the course in the industry where people will feel like they're going to catch lightning in a bottle, and they'll just really dial into whatever that game is. Have you seen with any of the games that you've been a content creator for, or a shoutcaster for, or just an avid player in? Have you seen anything like what's happening with Dark and Darker?
Yeah, so this has only happened one time before, and it was Fortnite. But I was just a player back then, and I did wagers and I competed and I made it all the way to the semifinals for the Fortnite World Cup. But that was like the aha moment for me, where basically everyone who made it to the World Cup, the worst player of the 100 that dropped out of the battle bus made 50K. So even if you were the worst of the best, even if you died off the rip, you got 50,000 and the best player got 3 million. And so I just started really following everything that was happening with that in the news. And it was cool because it was the first time my family reached out knowing I was a gamer all this time. There's a lot of like negativity associated with prior generations and gaming.
Hmm.
And so they've always seen it as just like this kind of a hobby when really, I mean, it is of course a hobby, but there's also like this whole other element to it. And there's a lot of money changing hands. And I mean, Fortnite is probably, I don't know the analytics, but it must be $1 billion industry. And
Oh, yeah,
so,
that seems conservative. Yeah,
yeah, the lowballing over here.
right.
But so, after that, I recognize what they did, and it was really cool. And I'll love Fortnite forever, despite how you feel about the BR and like the single player game it used to be. They really changed the industry. They shook the ground, and they allowed people from all walks of life worldwide to compete on the stage as equals. And so after that, especially with a game like V Rising, I started doing community tournaments and we were shoutcasting, we were running tournaments. And a lot of that I just paid out of pocket again, because I had a nice windfall from Reddit. And that to me, that was fun money.
Hmm.
Like that 100K was something I should have never had. And I didn't have a job for 5 years. So I was just doing weird stuff. I was experimenting and trying to find out what I like to do. And of course, I loopholed back to gaming. And so V Rising, we did all that stuff. We did it for Naraka Blade Point, and what was cool is a lot of these games that we start doing this for pick it up on their own, right? Like Sunlock Studios ran like a Twitch Rivals tournament with like Shroud and a bunch of the big people. And then Naraka Blade Point became like this massive battle royale. And they're shelling out like tens of thousands of dollars in Asian countries around the world. And so I think that it'll probably be the same for Dark and Darker, right? Like the last couple playtests, we've ran community tournaments and we started with nobody. And now we have so many people that we have to like cut off signups the minute the tournament goes live.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
and so it's just awesome to see. And I'm positive it's going to happen for Dark and Darker. Like
Yeah.
we had 1.25 million players in December in like a closed like an open alpha that's like small, right? Like it's tiny. It's like an
Yeah.
unknown. And we had like 20 million views on Twitch. And so in February we're gonna have like 2.5 million players and probably like 50 million views. And these are ballparks, but it's just exciting to be part of it, especially from the ground up. To watch it
100%.
grow.
100%. And the Ironmace team is what gets a lot of people excited as well. I know I shared on my or in my conversation with Jay kind of my experience with SDF and getting banned as a cheater and then unbanned almost immediately as soon as I reached out to them, and just everything that they've done everything that they've done so far I feel is right, or is what I
Mhm.
would want to see, in terms of transparency, in terms of
Mhm.
passion, their overall philosophy. You just go to the first exposure that I had to Ironmace was with their webpage, right? Like well, that's not entirely true. I played the game before I ever went to their webpage. So I played the September playtest. And then afterwards, after I'm ready for my next dopamine hit and I'm jonesing, I went out and wanted to learn more. So looking at that webpage, I was just really honestly like inspired by that, and the future of the game I feel like is extremely bright. But you kind of have some of the behind the curtain access, right? You've talked with Terrence, you've talked with some of the other
Mhm.
folks. What are you allowed to share with your inside information?
That is such a broad question. You gotta What am I allowed to share? I'll just say that there's a lot of stuff happening in the background, and it's far beyond probably the wildest dreams of the devs. Because when you think about them as a studio, they were 20 people, and they didn't have a ton of financial backing, or they just had like enough to get things done. And they're working out of a jujitsu gym, so you got to think it's like 20 people sitting cross-legged on jujitsu mats, and they're just coding and hanging out, and they're making a passion project, and that started last year. So I would say that these devs are fundamentally shaking up the industry as well, because if they can go from zero to early access in like a year and attract 2+ million players all over the world, like everyone loves it.
Yeah.
It's really blowing up, and it's been out for such a short amount of time. I can only imagine what'll happen when we go to early access in April or whenever that's going to be. So I'll just say that it's like a really fun time, and the fact that they can just spit out content constantly, right? Every new playtest. I mean, I
And
was playing since
patches
the
and bug fixes like that
yeah,
last
an
playtest.
instant.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy good.
Like there's a problem and 20 minutes later it's fixed, or like they
Yep.
bring down the server for an hour and not only do they fix the issue, but they're like, by the way, we added two more maps. Heads up, we got a whole new game mode.
Yep.
And now, coming next playtest, we're probably going to get the entire system of questing, or at least the baseline of it. And so each time they add something, it sort of feels like what everybody wants. Like they just keep hitting. And so even if they miss once or twice, I think it would still be like a positive, it'd be a net gain.
Hmm.
And so I'm constantly excited because it's constantly evolving, and so are all of we. And even with me here at 300 hours playtime, I'm still learning. Like there's still stuff that is like baffles me when I see all the really cool plays, right? When I watch stuff from Ken Nobi and just some of the other creators when they're doing shorts and they're like jumping over weapon swings. And so the skill ceiling is sort of infinite.
So that's a lot of the good. Let's talk about some of the drama. Not too long ago, in fact, it was within the last week, I think, there was a little expose on, shoot, what was the name of the channel? You're gonna have to remind me. And I don't know if you want to name drop or not. If you just want to say someone's channel, I'm cool with that.
You got to be
Uh,
talking about Modest Mate. You
yeah,
have to be.
that's it. Yep. So he
Yeah.
he did a video on Mr. Fear TTV,
Mhm.
and the controversy around him being banned and then subsequently unbanned for cheating. And there was most certainly video evidence of him just flying around the room at like 5,000 move speed, and then kills the player that was recording at the time. So
Yep.
then Modest switches to some screenshots, shots of you guys talking in the Elite Discord, which may be a topic that we want to circle back to later. I guess I've done the lead in for this. You take over from here.
It's so fun to like think about it and to be part of this sort of snowball because now I think we can say honestly that a lot of what happened for that drama is sort of circumstantial and a large controversy because Modest Mate was either banned or temp banned from like every aspect of the
Modest
community.
Mate was not Mr. Fear. Modest
Modest
Mate.
Mate was, yes, and this is what's so fun is because he dove into this sort of journalistic aspect, this expose on cheating, and I don't know what went wrong, but clearly he made some enemies, and maybe his tone in the video was too aggressive, or he didn't take the right stance, or he wasn't neutral enough. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to say, but he was banned or temp banned from like Reddit and Discord and like the Sweat Discord, and so yeah, I don't really know how much I can talk about it other than to say that Mr. Fear TTV was exonerated by the development team and unbanned, and so I will side with the developers. They must know
Gotcha.
more than we do,
Yep.
and so if they unban him, then in my mind that is like a not guilty plea,
Mm-hmm.
and so I will treat him fairly and equally. And this is someone who's been in the top 10 in multiple playtests.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure they paid particular attention to his movements and actions in game. And yes, the screenshot from me, uh, I want to say it was taken out of context, but like contextually, it was exactly what actually happened. Where then when people brought it up, and they were like, "That's actually wrong, though. You just wasted everyone's time in the lobby, and you just zeroed all their gear. Like you just
Yeah.
gave a lot of players a negative experience." And so yeah, I retract my statement. I
Yeah.
now genuinely feel like that is true. That would be unfair and kind of evil. And so now I guess you would just have to throw the torch on the ground or like disconnect or like run to a blue portal. I don't really know like what the proper thing to do there is, but yeah,
Right.
that's all I've got to say about
Yeah,
that
it's like
one.
the One Ring. You can't just throw it on the ground for the next person to come by and pick it up, man. You got to take that thing to
You gotta
Mordor. You got to get
all the
out.
way. We need the Eagles.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a definitely a interesting take on that. After only watching that video, Justin, who's in the chat, aka Spooty, he and I were chatting about it, and it was just like, yeah, man, I don't know what the heck I would do, but hearing your thought process now, it is definitely it definitely seems clear to me what the right thing to do is. But in the
Mhm.
moment, it is hard to
In the
say. Well, in the
moment.
moment, especially if you're not in the high roller lobby, and especially if
Yeah.
it's early in the wipe,
Mhm.
then yeah, I mean, it's hard to say.
And
The
like you're the
other
first person to find that.
right,
So like you said with the One Ring analogy, I think you just picked that up and you're like, "Wait, I could be invisible?
hmm,
All right, like this is just me now. This is just my life." I
right,
kind of want to share some fun news, like if you don't mind.
yeah,
I've been
man, go
making some
for it.
reveals, and I've been kind of trying to dive into this whole content creation thing, right? Like I was saying, I always did it. I just never realized that you could sort of turn it into a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's cool because between this playtest, I've been diving into like the realms of industry. And so I like met with people from Silicon Valley and I had a meeting in LA. And I just have a lot of really cool ideas that I'm working on. And so I'm super excited because I'm starting to feel like there's no bad ideas. There's only bad execution of them. And if you have enough good people around you, you can always turn every idea into something great. And everyone has a role to play in it. And so lately, I joined this team of five really talented, individuals and entrepreneurs, and they're doing something called 3M 3Y, where they think that if we take the top five ideas that all of us have, and we work with our networks and our skills, we can make $3 million in 3 years, but in a way that's positive and
Is that
beneficial
each or
to,
total? Each or total?
you know what, either way is fantastic. There's no wrong answer here.
All
But
right.
so I've just been synthesizing a lot of really really fun stuff, and I feel very busy, and this is one of the I kind of feel like I've unlocked myself. Like I'm my most confident self, and I'm actually Google calendaring, and I'm making appointments, and I'm doing a lot of things. But the reason I bring it up is because I'm super excited for February because when the playtest comes back, I like bought costumes, right? And now we're sort of working on this role play for the Inquisition as we try to fight the dread darkness. And we're putting bounties out on all the top wizards. So for everyone watching, especially those bounty targets, you're gonna have to watch your back because Jay Griffia, Jonah Vale, Ken Nobi, and Sky T, the master of the mole rats, all these disgusting wizards that are just wiping lobbies. Um,
Hold
I
on.
want to,
You got to hold on a second. I got to
yeah,
reserve the domain name darkanddarkerlarping.com before you get it. One
yeah,
second.
bountytarget.com,
Hold on.
bounty tracker. But like I was saying with fun money, right? Like I kind of feel like a lot of the money that I can make via YouTube and such, I just want to pour it back into the industry. Like I love gaming and I love our community. So I feel like the more money I make, like the more money I can like spread. Like I can have like a $10,000 tournament in the future.
Oh
And I
yeah.
love my tournaments because they're always open to the public. I think there's a lot of people who probably don't stream that are really skilled, and so we'll never see their videos or the level they can get to. And sort of tournaments is a way to equal the playing field, right? Because we do like max gear quality white or max gear quality green, and so everyone can kind of prepare for that equally, right? If you do unlimited gear, then the
Hmm.
people who play the most are going to have the best chance of winning. They're going
Sure.
to be in legendaries and uniques.
Yep.
And so when we filter it down to like gray, white, and green, I think it gives everyone a fair shot. And so I'm excited for stuff like that. And just to loop back to the bounty targets, guys, I'm giving away $25 and 1,250 gold per wizard. Bring me their heads. High roller only,
I
video
love it.
proof.
I love it.
Kill them dead, man. They've got control, they've got dominion over the elements, and it
Oh
is
man.
faithless and heretical. All right, bring me their heads.
So you got
And so,
Jay. You know,
got Jay,
you got Ken. So
Ken
you're
Nobi.
pronouncing it Nobi. Is that from a authoritative source or from him himself? I've always said Ken Kenobi. I thought it was like a play
I like that.
on Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's where
Yeah, you could definitely go that route, but I've known him for years, just like Jonah. A lot of the full loot PvP community constantly loops back. We're like a what's that snake that eats its own tail? Is that Jormunger?
Oh yeah,
Am
I know what you're
I
talking
saying that
about.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, Anyway, that is the full loot PvP community, and we all play the same games, even if they're terrible. And always for MMOs, always for cool games, especially on the topic of Dark and Darker, we've got this upcoming wipe. 0 hour is always the coolest time in these games. Like everyone's fresh out the gates. Usually, there's not a lot of knowledge, and everyone's just like wilding. They're killing each other naked. They're like fist fighting. Someone finds a good piece of gear and someone else stabs them in the back. And so we've been doing this for like the past decade. And so like me and Jonah Vale used to be big time enemies. We played this game called Darkfall, and it was insane. This game, the guilds were like 200 or 300 people large, and you had to like mine rocks and cut down trees to build castles and boats and like siege equipment. And so Jonah Vale was a terror, man. He was a menace on the map. He led this guild called the Dune Rats, and they lived off in some crappy desert that nobody wanted to go to because it took like hours to get anywhere. And Jonah Vale and the Dune Rats would show up at sieges and demand payment. And if you didn't pay them, they would just devastate you. And so they would like burn your castle to the ground and like kill all your animals and like women and children. And literally, this is not a joke. I worked for like a month with my guild, and Jonah came and like ripped our castle to pieces and like tore it down to its foundations. And people were actually crying in Discord,
Oh
like
my.
actually tears. These are people with jobs and like families, and like we all came together to build something. And so Jonah just did this for like 2 months. He was just an absolute menace. And then the whole server came together, and we dropped a siege on their little desert, their little dune rat stronghold. And we wiped them off the map. There was like 400 of us and like 20 of them. And like I just gotta say, it was one of my proudest moments in gaming history. Jonah killed my best friend, and then I killed Jonah, and we were like naked, right? And he had gear, and so I was just like screaming. And back then, I didn't really like do a lot, and he was a streamer, and so like you see this sort of relationship forming, this rivalry.
Yeah.
But over the course of the years, I played with Ken Nobi, and I think it's Nob or Nobby because he always has Knob in his name in some fashion.
Oh, okay.
And so in this game, Darkfall, I ended up joining his clan, Ken Nobi's clan, when my clan just fell apart. When we lost our castle, we like lost our minds, and so everyone scattered to the four winds. And so I joined Ken Nobi's clan, called The Gentleman. And so like I've just been
Good
part of all
movie.
these communities for years. And long story short on that one, we played Albion online, we played Mortal online too, and so I've worked with Jonah and against Jonah, even in Dark and Darker. I got a
Yeah.
bounty out on his head right now.
Yeah, I saw
But
that video you dropped earlier today. Was you, Jonah, and Dragon? Is Dragon one of his guys?
no, that's actually one of my guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a guy I just met, and this is what the other cool part about being a content creator is I meet a lot of really cool people, and people that want to collaborate, people that want to work together, and I play solo a lot, so it's really nice to have people reach out and they want to play. And these are people that know a lot more than I do in certain situations. Like I don't play fighter. I've got guides out for almost every class except fighter. And so it was fun playing with Dragon because he was a really good fighter. And you could see like a lot of people are commenting on that video that he's just savage and he made some really cool plays. And one of the funnest comments I read is somebody said that he was Hodor because he was really holding the door and just like 1v3'd with his spear. And I mean, that was nasty.
Yep.
But yeah, it comes and it goes. It's all healthy and fun. And you know what? I hear a little rumor on the streets is that Asmongold and Soda Poppin have been playing Dark and Darker, and so they're part of this organization called the One True Kings. And I kind of feel like they're stepping on the inquisitional territory.
Uh-oh.
And so, we'll see what happens in February. We got some wizards to deal with, but once we sweep these wizards out of our game, I think it might be time to target the One True Kings.
Yeah, oh my.
Bring them down a
So,
notch.
hey, let's clarify real quick.
Hmm.
$25, 1,250 gold,
Oh yeah.
not for any wizard. It has to be the most wanted list, right? Like
Yeah,
you're not
it's got to be the four, heads of the Hydra. You got to cut one of them down.
okay.
I originally wanted to do money and gold. I originally wrote $1 and 50 gold per wizard, and then I was like, wait a second, like this is gonna
That's
be
gonna add up
nuts.
fast, yeah.
People are gonna be killing their friends and stuff, and it's a lot to keep track of. So
Yeah, that's too much. I think that's
yeah,
smart.
and I'm still filtering through the rules. I'll put a video out. That's the other thing that I was saying with the stream team. It's cool because basically now I'm broke, right? I went on like a 4-year world tour, and I just went to broke, eating ramen. And so now, especially joining the stream team, they've got cool resources, man. Like these people have a lot of followers and a lot of kind of power in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I'm like sharing my ideas with them, and they're like, "Ooh, I really like this. Like, let's kill some wizards. Let's have a tournament." So definitely look forward to the Inquisitional 1 versus 1 tournament, and I'm gonna have a video out coming for that soon as well because I was part of Cross Currents. The 3-time. I won both the 1v1 tournaments in December for both 64 players and
Yep.
164, and so the 1v1 format is amazing. It's cracked. It's absolutely goated. So I'm excited to get the video out. You could do it with your friends. Like you're in the same party. You sort of have wall hacks a little bit because you can see where they are. But it's so awesome because it's the last player standing. So universally, you almost always have to fight either in Crypts or Inferno.
Uh-huh.
And whoever lives the longest wins. And so it's really cool, especially because you're playing for gear sets. So you're like playing for pink slips. I don't know. It's super fun. We'll see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for V1 because I
Yeah, that's
genuinely
what I
feel
want to
like
talk about. I'm glad you brought
a
that back up.
forest is going to be just the entire game is going to shift. There's no way around it. If we have 33 players in a forest map and we have quests, think about how much loot that is. Like, how many people will make it to Crypt, let
Is
alone
that the number? Is
Inferno?
it 33 or 32?
So when I talked to Terrence, no, it was Oh, that's actually a good question. I'm positive that they said 33 was the number that they had internally tested to be functional, but I actually like 32 better because I like when we don't have something divisible by 3 because that helps solos and duos. Because if
Yeah.
it's divisible by 3, then there would be what 11 squads potentially. I like when it's a weird number because then we get a bunch of solos and duos, and
Well, are
I'm
they
all about
keeping it
anything.
16 down? I mean, they have to keep it 16 down more or less, right? Because of the
Well,
way, well,
now
unless
it's
they
like
change the
20
timer.
down. Well, so at the end, we had originally they wanted to do 20 for high roller and then 18 for normal. But the issue, this is a really cool story, and I'm so mad that Twitch deleted all my VODs. I'm not a partner, and Twitch just like DMCA struck me and literally deleted all my VODs. So I'm lucky I have any content, to be honest. But day
Jeez.
one, initially they wanted 18 to 20 players, right? And it was so awesome. So right at 0 hour, like the first lobby, we spawned in and there was another squad in our spawn box inside of us, and my teammate was like,
We had
"O
that happen
on top
once.
of us, on
Yeah.
top of us, they're ranged," and so we pulled out our melee weapons, and we slaughtered them. It was
Yep.
like 2 rangers and a wizard, and we were like barb, rogue, cleric, or something, and they got devastated, and I was like, "Wow, is it" like, I kind of like, I wasn't sure if it was on purpose or not, and so I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be awful." Like, the fastest people to load in and the melee players are just gonna
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
demolish,
Yeah, we had the same
and so
experience. Justin and
they
I
they
had someone
brought the
standing right
player
next to
count
us. Yep.
down to, like, compensate for that, and then I think they hotfixed and they moved the spawns around,
Yep.
but, yeah, I'd never heard of anyone else having that experience, so, like, what did you guys run into?
Uh, Almost the same. There were only two of us. Justin and I queued in, and we were. I was about to drop an weapon or piece of armor on the floor, and next thing you know, he's getting hit in back of the skull, and we're like, "What?" And every subsequent load, the first thing we did when we hear the boom, which I love. That was one of the coolest things. I thought it was such a good game design decision where like the dungeon is there's no music. The dungeon is completely silent except for the environmental effects and the other
Mhm.
players, right? But the boom when you get in, it was always one of the coolest things. Anyway, so every time we heard the boom, the first thing we did was like check all the shadows in the room that we spawned into to make sure there's
Yeah,
no.
god, imagine 3 rogues. But, yeah, thankfully, they fixed it, and just wrapping back toward B1, with forests and questing, I also think questing is a phenomenal idea. Yeah, if we get, like, a cross connection between all the quests and the merchants, and it gives you even basic rewards, right, like 25 gold and a box of healing items, I just think that's good for everybody,
Yeah.
especially new players. It gives them a goal to go to, and then they can just leave, right? Like, they can just stack loot on forest. I don't know, it's so crazy to think about, like, as high roller, 33 high rollers in forest, that's gonna be nuts.
I know.
Oh my god, that's so much people and so much third party and so much loot. That's gonna really change the game. So I hope, I have full faith in the devs, but I gotta say, I hope that it's not fully open. Like, it needs to be like a ruinous castle or like a hedge maze or like
Right.
dank caves with fog or something. Because ranged is very strong. And, when I think forest, I think, "Oh," I'm a
Yeah.
cleric and a barb main, and so I think, "Oh, let me get closer to them."
Yep. I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to the what they're gonna do or what they're gonna have, I guess, a year from now, 2 years from now. The amount of different themes that they have in mind. I mean, they've talked about dragons, and it sounds like we might even get a dragon. I saw rumors somewhere that they may have a dragon in this next update, which is
Yep, we will
insane.
see with that one. So, according to the devs, the Lich and the Ghost King are like mini bosses essentially,
Hmm.
and they wanted to put those on Crypt, and they want Inferno to have a dragon. So, I don't know, it took me like 6 months to feel comfortable fighting the Lich and the Ghost King, so I don't know what that's gonna be like.
Right.
It sounds insurmountable. It sounds like a good place for players to wipe and then me to just wait for them to figure out how to beat it,
Yeah.
and then I'll go.
Or just try to get down there in all your gray gear and then, you know, see what you can do.
Sure.
Just
I hear a
enjoy
lot
the
of people
battle.
doing that, and that is an idea, but, like, I also feel like if you don't have gear, are you really learning that much, or are you just wiping
Eh,
nonstop?
it depends on
Because
how
like,
long you can evade, I guess.
that's true, it's all about skill.
Yeah.
I actually think you could beat the bosses in all grays, you would just have to be, like,
Oof.
really good,
Yeah.
but I do think it's possible.
Yeah, man, if people can beat games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring without getting hit once, then yeah, anything's possible. Those videos are nuts. I had to stop watching them because my ego just got so deflated. I
I
couldn't do
quit that game, man.
it.
I swear to God, I would never play Dark Souls games after Dark Souls 3. And then Elden Ring came out and you could play with your friends and like ride a
Yeah.
horse. I was like, oh, it's like Witcher. And then I was just like demolished nonstop. And I thought, you know what? For my mental health, I'm not going to play this game. I'll wait. You said earlier you wanted to loop back to the Sweat Discord. So
Mm-hmm.
the only thing I'll say about it is that it's a really cool place and things are sort of lawless there, which is unfortunate. But it's really cool because a lot of beautiful things happen in the Elite Discord in the sense that at the start of every playtest, we circle up around a campfire, and this is like 100 people, and we look at the patch notes, and we talk about what's changing and what the meta could be. And so what was really fun last time is that people were trying to decide whether or not we could go to high roller at the second lobby. And so you just have all these people that are starting to add their opinion on whether or not high roller is possible in grays. And we had never had that before. We never had a high roller lobby. And so we were also trying to decide how viable it was to get the 70 gold and then drop in like with or without healing. And so a lot of us did that, and a lot of us just wiped, that first high roller lobby. And so then we report back and we're like, let's get some more gear. This centaur is real tough. And so it's cool to be a part of that. And it is special because it's the top 100 players in the world, and it rotates each play test. And so, of course, there's some elitism involved in that, but these
Sure.
are also people at like the highest aspect of their game. So you're going to get the spectrum, right? You're
Right.
going to get people who, it's all they do. You're going to get a lot of diverse personalities, young, old, the like. But what I like about Ironmace and Dark and Darker is that we have this veteran adventurer point system,
Hmm.
and it's very fair because if you do not extract from the dungeon, you lose points, and the only way to get them is to leave. So it takes into account PvE, PvP, looting, bossing. And so that metric on the veteran adventurer leaderboard to me is like one of the best leaderboards ever invented. It encompasses everything.
Yep.
And you have to like consistently play well to get onto it. And so it's super cool that they have it. And now they've included that in the main Discord. And if you get like top rank inside the official Discord, they give you an emoji. So like it's just something fun. Iron Mace is looking out. They're putting the Easter eggs in the game. Naric's bounty posters up in the tavern.
Hmm.
YOLO Rage's dagger is in there. Like it's cool stuff.
Yeah. The only requirement, just to be clear, the only requirement to make the Elite Discord is to finish
Mhm.
top 100. That's it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that's it because back when I made it in August, there was only 300 of us. Big easy. 1/3 of the player base made it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
"Hey, everybody." Like, we played together.
Yep.
Um, and then what's kinda cool, though, is that you can't just make it once. You have to make it twice. So if you're fallen if you don't make it again, and then if you don't make it the next time, you're kicked out of the Discord. So you have to become an immortal to stay there with any permanency, and you have to basically get top 100 2 play tests sort of in a row or, like, within a cycle. And so, it is what it is. You have to go in there with an open mind and realize that
Wait, so this isn't run by Iron Mace?
no, this one is not run by Ironmace.
Okay.
They're once upon a time easy to talk about the meta and shifts in the game world and balancing. And now we have 1.25 million players, so it's not about the elite. It's about the population.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think for all games, you need to get a balance from everyone, right? Because you want to please everybody in a game,
Right.
like new players, intermediate players, elite players, competitive players, etc. And so now it is not developer supported. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll
I've spent a
go
fair
we'll
amount of
say
time
that.
in the D&D suggestions channel. I told Justin earlier today, a lot of what's in there, not a lot, some of what's in there is absolutely ridiculous and garbage.
Oh, an
But
official?
a lot of it is
Mhm.
really, really good. There are some
Right.
really, really outstanding suggestions, stuff,
Mhm.
quality of life improvements that I've never even thought of, game mechanics, just crazy good input that you're getting from the community.
Exactly.
And a lot of this stuff was obvious, like, hey, make it easier to buy stuff. Hey, make the trade post a little bit more
Oh, I love
user
that one.
friendly, right?
100%, we need that.
There's just tons of good stuff in there. And when you combine that with the amount of lore and inspiration they can draw from classic tabletop Dungeons and Dragons, and the amount of environments, the amount of maps they're going to be able to build, the sky is truly the limit. I mean, I do
Mhm.
feel like this is a game that, if it's done right, could be around 10 years from now, right? It could
100%.
be World of Warcraft level popular if these guys just keep doing what they're doing without, I mean, I hate to say it, but as long as they don't sell their soul, if Iron Mace can remain true to themselves and figure out how to scale. I mean, they're going to have to figure out how to scale. That's one of the hardest things for any company to do, is to go from a 30-person company to a 300-person company and still retain their identity, retain the quality, it's a very difficult thing. And then when you go
Hmm.
from 300 to 1,000, it's exponentially worse, right? So uh, if they can manage that, I really think the game has that kind of potential. Just
Kind of going back to what I was saying when you asked if I'd ever seen something like this before, I saw it with Fortnite because Fortnite just started fundamentally changing the game design and then doing a lot of interesting and cool stuff.
Mhm.
And they were branching out and they were doing new things and new maps and new modes and et cetera, et cetera. And they were throwing concerts live for millions of people. I went and saw Travis Scott live like for free. That was super awesome. And so when I see Dark and Darker, it's already that. It's World of Warcraft raid bosses and PUBG battle royale and Escape from Tarkov loose loot, and it's just all of this cool stuff. And my main hope is that they don't listen to everyone. And like I'm glad they don't support the elite Discord because you're only getting the elite opinion. Excuse me, the elite opinion, and
Mhm.
we don't always know what's right because we're like PvPers for the most part. You know what I mean? Like we're like meta focused. We don't see the big picture.
Mhm.
We see narrow tunnels, and that's why it's always cool for me to get comments on my videos because a lot of it's new player perspectives. And I've
Right.
lost that. I'm sort of jaded, and so it's so great watching the new content creators and like they're having fun and they're discovering new things. And like I watched Asmongold at the end of the last playtest,
Oh
and
man, it was hilarious.
man, he had a really good time playing our
Oh,
game, and like that is
heck yeah.
so fun to see. Like even
Yep.
losing, they were just like having a ball.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna keep it, right? We don't need to be a 300 people. Sorry, I say we. Ironmace doesn't need to be a 300-person company because they're already shipping new content on a milestone cycle every like 2 or 3 months
Mhm.
consistently, and they're like kind of broke and they're just kind of rolling with it. But for sure, we're gonna sell at least like 1 to 5 million copies in the first like year or two.
Yep.
That's a lot of money for 30 people.
Yeah.
If we assume the game's $20 and they sell 2 million copies, that's
I
math. I
hope
don't
they
know what that
charge
is.
more, honestly.
Oh,
I
how
would
how much?
I would gladly play what? I would gladly pay triple that
Yeah.
amount. I think
Oh
60
no,
is a
$60?
$60.
Oh, I
Go
don't
for
know,
it.
dude. That's a
I
lot.
don't think they will. I'm saying selfishly, me
Yeah.
personally. I'm not saying it's best for
Mhm.
the game. Personally, I would love to pay $60 and keep more cheaters out.
Oh,
But
okay. Yeah, I like that.
to make the game more accessible to a broader audience, what's the
Mhm.
sweet spot? I don't know.
30. It's gotta be
30,
30.
30 to
Yeah.
39.99,
30,
something
30,
like
and we
that.
get pay to lose cosmetics.
Yeah,
Because
right.
as everybody saw in my tournament video,
I
I
love
don't
the
I
blue
don't
torch,
I don't
man. I
care
don't
what
care what you
the
say.
negative stats are.
I love the
I'm
blue
wearing the
torch.
skeleton. Yeah, the blue torch is great.
I
And,
love
and
it.
like they could do so much more with it. I saw a suggestion in official the other day to have graffiti, and like if they make it like Rome, right? Like sort of archaic graffiti. It's like kind of stupid and maybe like a little bit obscene or like dark, like kind of drippy. I would get that. And I also really like the idea that if we have the cosmetic store tied to the veteran adventurer points, and then we also have a cosmetic store where you could pay real money and it's only cosmetics.
Hmm.
I would really, really love that because the
Yeah,
majority of people probably can't buy VA store items because you got to be playing really well, and this game is hard.
yeah,
The monsters are hard, the bosses are hard, the players are like really hard.
yep,
Players are getting nuts.
yep,
When I watched the highest tier of play, and like I said when I dropped the video with Jonah doing the high roller times 5, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that I was rolling with like the best teammates ever because they just cleaned up. All
yep.
I had to do was pocket heal. I was like, at one point I like fell off the bridge and they just went and like swept like 3 or 4 men while I was like running around in a bunch of traps. And so it's just cool to see. It's cool to be a part of it.
So
Um,
we got to address the
mhm.
chat real quick. Justin is saying there's no shot. $60. Game will be
No,
24.99 or 29.99.
I like 29.99 and big time pay to lose cosmetics. Like I will pay $250 if you let me be a goblin and I get like double movement speed but no weapons and I can just run around and punch ankles. I will rep the goblin. Let me be a spider. Like whatever. You can do a lot of cool stuff, and you can tell they're experimenting right now with the skeletons. And who knows where that can go, especially when we get onto a cyclical wipe cycle of 3 months.
Yep,
That's a long time to experiment and to try things. And kind of like Tarkov does, toward the end of the wipe, they just do like weird stuff and they see how people react. So let's get that going.
yep.
Like every monster is a nightmare monster for like a week or like the last 2 days of the wipe. And there's like 6 liches just rolling around the crypt, just
I love it.
death becomes you, and the dark grows darker.
Yep.
You just see in the kill feed in normal, it's like Lich kill, 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 and like everyone's just, maybe we have VoIP, and everyone's screaming, and like a bard's just in the corner playing music like some sort of tragedy.
I like that idea. I like the idea of introducing a monster like the last day that they didn't have the entire playtest so far.
Yeah,
Especially
a
one that's,
preview.
yeah, like the Mimic, almost every new player, one of the most fun things that really the second playtest, because that's when we got, what, 20,000, 24,000 players in that October playtest. You started to see increased amount of content. One of the funnest things to do is just get on YouTube and watch new streamers encounter a Mimic for the first time, like jump out of their chair. But having
It took me
something like
months to get over that.
oh man, it's so good. But having something like on the last day of the playtest, they introduce a beholder that comes out of the
Ooh.
ceiling
Oh my
and
god.
just grabs people and pulls them up.
Oh, it'd be
Like
sick.
something like that would just be incredible. There's so many different directions they could go.
I kind of just want to end it with maybe some advice for players,
Yeah, man.
just in the sense that I've got two different advices that I just want to leave with. The first is for new players, which is that you've got to learn to dance. All right, both in real life and in the game. It's going to help you immensely. Your life is going to be dramatically improved by both, and you're going to have some really wild experiences, especially if you go overseas and abroad. And so you gotta learn to dance. You gotta jump. You gotta cheese. You gotta duck and dive and really outplay your opponents. The skill ceiling is way higher than you think it is. Every single class is viable. Don't listen to the chatter in the realm of Reddit and Discord. I'm telling you, the classes are pretty close to balanced. Obviously, Wizard is a little bit overtuned, but maybe it's fine, and I don't know how we would fix it. But the classes are balanced. Use your ranged weaponry. All right, the Wizard is just a weak, just crappy mole
I knew it
rat.
was
Okay,
coming,
you
man.
lodge a Francesca axe in their eye, or you throw a rogue dagger in their throat. They're going down like a sack of potatoes, baby. Kill them wizards. Don't be afraid. Push. If you get a rogue in your back, just fight them. Okay, if you give them your back, you're dead. Just turn and swing.
Yep.
Take them out.
Yep.
And then my advice to players that are trying to grind the leaderboard: be careful, guys. All right, we have 1.2 million players and probably headed toward 2 or more. That is a lot of people competing for 100 slots on a leaderboard.
Yeah.
Just recognize it is an immense time commitment, physical and mental strain. And there are people who are building their bones and their careers on this. You've got your young gods and your living legends, and they are really pushing these leaderboards. So I've heard it a bunch in my own community is people were like, I was trying to do it for like 6 days without sleeping, and I'm not going to make it. And so like that's just a lot. But if you're going to do it, buy food, clean your apartment before the playtest. Let your family know that
Prepare
you
for
are
your
going
adventure. Yeah.
overseas and you will not be available for 7 days.
Right.
Because I bought enough food to feed a fat pack of fat rats, especially for new players. I vanish more players than Rome's Lost Legion. If you see me queue NA West, you got to swap regions.
There it is.
All right.
I knew the rap
Your
was
your
coming
NA
out.
West champion
I
is
knew the
coming
rap was coming
in
out.
February. All right, the 3-time back-to-back Doctor of Divinity. Thank you for the interview, Scott. It's been an immense pleasure.
They say that God made us in their image. These angels so gorgeous in their ruby silver vintage. Strip it all off, it's an hourglass. God gotta put that sin on my tab, cause that's a lot of ass. And it's a lot to ask for me to resist. Chillin' with the Ghost King and the Lich. OGs from the other side of the crypt.